Welcome to your practice today, yogi friends. Today I am going to be sharing a yin yoga sequence with you that speaks to the full moon in Sagittarius energy. And so we're coming up to the full moon in the next couple of days. So I'm noticing a lot of these themes are apparent, not just in me, but in the people around me as well, and the things that they're experiencing and choosing to share with me. And so even though this video is related to a timed event, you can treat it as a regular third eye chakra or water element balancing sequence if you like, because they're really the themes that we're going to be addressing. So the full moon in Sagittarius is really a seeker of truth. Sagittarius is a sort of philosopher, a truth seeker. And Sagittarius is the sort of half horse, half man with the bow and arrow. And that arrow seeks truth. It seeks the target. And sometimes that arrow doesn't fly true because it's being swayed by the winds of our mind, or it's been swayed by our perspectives, our over-analyzing, and the arrow can get lost. But if we want that arrow to fly true and we want it to land on, our spiritual purpose or our spiritual destination where we feel like we're going, then we need to create some clarity in our vision. And clarity and vision and truth really relates to this third eye chakra. So your third eye chakra is the energetic center within you that relates to your ability to pattern recognize and your ability to sense things. It's sort of your intuitive space. And when that gets fogged up and it gets cloudy, or perhaps it's not supported by a calm mind, a calm Shen, as they would say in traditional Chinese medicine, then obviously what you see becomes muddled, and your ability to intuit certain things of a situation, or perhaps to connect with another person and the way that they're communicating with you, that becomes a little bit more complicated. And it tends to stand in the way of that true flying arrow. And so we're going to be working with the third eye chakra a bit today. And as with all things, I'm always so amazed by the coincidences and the synchronicities that come up, because the sign of Sagittarius is a fire sign, and fire sign is, really expressive, can be really verbal, it can sort of be a bit of an adventurer, and if that gets out of control, we can sometimes lose touch with that balanced sense of self. And in traditional Chinese medicine or in 5-element theory, in order to calm the fire element down, you will often help balance water element. And it's so interesting to me that the third eye chakra is a chakra that relates to your bladder meridian, which is your water element. So even though we'll be working with the the third eye chakra today, we'll also be working with the bladder meridian and the kidney meridian, which is its water pairing. And so I have picked a few oils that, if you're into aromatherapy medicines, please by all means help yourself to these aromas. If you haven't worked with them before, or you would like to work with them more, I am going to share a separate video breaking down each of these oils and how they relate to this practice or to this time and this emotional experience. So feel free to go and check that out. But for today, I am going to be using frankincense, which is the oil of truth, balance, which is the oil of groundedness and sinking into self, and then clary sage, which is the oil of clarity and vision. And so these oils really tie in with the teachings of this full moon. If you would like to work with aromatherapy, or you would like to try some oils, please by all means reach out and I can arrange some of these for you. So without further ado, let's get set up for the practice. Make sure you're nice and warm. It is actually really cold at the moment and your body temperature drops during yin yoga. So maybe pop some socks on, make sure you've got a nice comfortable jumper or a blanket nearby. I'm mostly going to be working with 2 blocks today, but by all means, if you want to use a bolster or anything else in your practice, please make sure you have that as well. I will offer you a playlist to use. Feel free to put that on a separate speaker if you like. Of course, you're more than welcome to use your own. Follow me on Spotify if you'd like any other playlist requests. And we're going to begin for today in a seated position. So take your time to find that position. Maybe you're propping yourself up with a block or your bolster. And if you are working with your essential oils, then go ahead and add a couple of drops of balance to your hands, rubbing the palms together and taking a few deep breaths through the nose as you welcome that aroma in. Starting to relax through the muscles around your eyes. And see if you can iron out the space that settles in between your eyebrows. Third eye, Ajna. And perhaps consider throughout your practice today if there's this tendency to squeeze around that space. In Chinese medicine, we call those 3 lines that sometimes forms between the eyebrows too much thinking. And so see if you can smooth out those lines. Let the eyebrows slide away from each other. Trust that you need less mental concentration in order to find understanding. For today, you don't need to move through any mental gymnastics to find the answer that resides within you. Trust instead that the answer will rise to the surface, or it will be illuminated in the depths of your water element as the light of the full moon shines upon it. And we'll practice a few rounds of Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, alternate nostril breathing. The principle of this pranayama is to calm the conversation that occurs between both sides of your brain, bringing harmony and clarity, clearing mental fog. And so take your time to bring the peace fingers of your right hand over your third eye center, right between the eyebrows, a really gentle touch of the finger pads. And then the thumb drops to the right nostril, ring finger falls to the left, and you can catch hold of the elbow with the left hand if you need to, if the arm becomes tired. Wherever you are in your cycle of breath, just take a long inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Seal the right nostril, breathe in through the left for 3, 2, 1. Exhale through the right for 3, 2, 1. Inhale through the right, 3, 2, 1. Exhale through the left, 3, 2, 1. Inhale left, 3, 2, 1. Exhale through the right, 3, 2, 1. Inhale right, 3, 2, 1. Exhale left, 3, 2, 1. Inhale left, Exhale right. Inhale right. Exhale left. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Two more rounds. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Gently release the right hand. Breathe in. Breathe out. And just take a moment to bring the inner awareness to your third eye. Notice any light or shapes or movements that might be occurring there. And can you imagine your breath as you inhale, moving to that third eye space, cleansing it with fresh breath, decalcifying it. Through this practice, our collective intention is to make this inner space clear. Taking one more breath in your own time. And let's start by fluttering open the eyes, finding a soft gaze forward. And then start to come off your prop, sitting the sit bones to the ground. And then bring the soles of the feet together, opening the knees out wide. And before we fold into a position, we're going to press on one of the acupressure points along your channels. And so just start to take your thumbs to the soles of your feet and just start to pad through that soft textured part of your arch. Just walking up and down. Don't worry about doing it right or wrong. Just pad the thumbs up and down. I often find this a really curious experience when I teach this in a class because it becomes blaringly obvious very quickly how little people touch themselves. We sort of realize that we're in this meat vehicle and you can actually have a loving, caressing relationship with it. And so start to feel that. Start to feel from the feet. Feel the feet being massaged by your hands. And then walk your thumbs up towards the ball of your foot, tracing towards the second toe. And then before crossing the ball of your foot, stay underneath that big pad, roughly in line with the second toe, and find that little indent there. And then press your thumbs into that space. It might feel tender, might feel a little ouchy. And just press. Firm, but not too hard. Hold there. This spot is known as kidney 1. And so it can help to start stimulating the kidney channel, which is one of the organ channels of the water element. And so just take 3 more breaths, perhaps noticing any sensations that are starting to move up through the legs. For 2. And 1. And then on the next inhale, gently let go of the point. And can you notice this sort of watery pulse? Maybe it's a coolness or a warmth spreading through the feet. And then we're going to move into our forward folding butterfly. So if you'd like to take a bolster under the knees or a block underneath each knee, please feel free to add that in. I'm going to go straight into it, and I'm just going to take a breath in, lifting up through the chest. And as I exhale, I'm just going to fold the upper body down through the gap of the legs. And I'm going to use a block to support my head. And so your body might not come down that far, and that's totally fine. Just create a little tower of blocks. And so I'm going to hang up here for a moment until my hips start to relax and welcome me in. And then I'll let my head bow a little bit deeper. And I highly encourage you to rest your forehead down on something, continuing that gentle stimulation and massage of the third eye between the eyebrows. Almost creating a bit of an acupressure point on Ajna. Long breaths that span down your back. The benefit of this pose is that it taps into both water channels. It stretches the bladder meridian, which runs down your back, and it also stretches the kidney channel through the legs. If you're starting to feel that your head can drop a little bit more, then maybe consider taking out a block or starting to adjust your pose so that the body can actually continue to let go of tension. So your shape will change as the body continuously lets go. So let it change. Fall into the change. And just feel the gentle tidal movement of your breath. The floating of the body as you take the inhale. The sinking of the body as you take your exhale.
And just start to take in 5 more deep breaths. Reminding yourself to relax in between those eyebrows. Let the shoulders settle. And then once you complete those breaths, just slowly start to use your hands to climb up away from the pose. Just let the head come up last. Move the block out of the way. And we'll come down onto the back, rebounding pose. So lengthen the legs out to the end of the mat. Roll back down onto your spine. And if the spine feels a little bit sensitive after that deep forward fold, then just bend into your knees. Taking a few deep breaths, observing the unfolding. And then on the next inhale, if you lengthen the legs, start to bend back into the knees. And then slowly roll yourself out to one side. And then press yourself up to a seated position. And we'll move into a half shoelace pose. And so it can be helpful to sit up on a block for this one, especially if you feel quite tight in the hips or the low back. For me, I like to sit on the floor, extend the left leg out straight, and then I'm going to hook the right knee over the left and catch the foot with the left hand and just pull it across towards that left hip as much as possible. So obviously if you've sat yourself up onto a block, sometimes this left knee wants a little bit of support. So feel free to slide something in underneath it. I actually love to pop a block underneath there sometimes, especially if the hamstring is quite tight. And this will help to relieve some pressure in the low back. But if you're pretty comfortable sitting there, then feel free to grab your blocks and place them either side of your leg. And then take a deep breath in, lift your heart, sliding it forward slightly towards the knee. And then as you exhale, start to drop to your elbows, maybe fold your forearms, and you can bow the forehead down. Sometimes I even use my arms like a little shelf. And if that's way too impossible for you, you can also use a big bolster or a pillow. Place it on top of your knee or your blocks, and then this might be your happy position. This folding of the top leg is quite a challenging position for a lot of people. And so don't let it be this deep story. Instead, just notice the challenge. If you're struggling to find any forward fold because that right knee is sitting really up high against your chest and the knee just won't fold down toward your extended leg, then that's okay. Imagine sitting yourself up and maybe actually just fold your hands on top of the knee and drop your head to it. And if any of the body parts start to grow numb or pins and needly, just make sure you adjust and maybe fold out a little bit. Move through the poses you need to without fidgeting too much. Adjustments are okay, but constant wriggling and moving will really distract the fascia. And so some of the themes that can help support this time and help support your water element is moving through an experience of trust. Especially if you're stuck really trying to figure everything out. If things just feel like they're not running smoothly or they're not making sense, things don't feel like they fit properly. When we're willing, we can find the higher meaning in our experiences. We can seek the bigger picture rather than getting lost in the minute details of every situation. What is the greater purpose? What is there for you to learn? And it's okay if you don't know the answer to that question. A teacher that I love working with often says the recognition of confusion is actually a sense of clarity in itself. If you can perhaps turn your blocks down an extra layer, or maybe surrender the weight of the head a little bit more into a free fall, and feel free to explore those edges for the last 5 breaths. And then slowly start to walk your hands up onto your blocks. Just drag the head up last. And as you exhale, you can move the props out of the way. Maybe use your hands to unfold that right leg and come down onto your back for a few rebounding breaths. Let the body spread into a natural, comfortable shape. Take any movements that feel juicy to you, or perhaps just connect with stillness. We take a few deep breaths. And as the body settles back to center, we can move into the other side. Take your time to bend the knees and perhaps roll off to the opposite side this time. Push yourself up away from the floor. And this time we'll extend the right leg out straight. Maybe sit up on a block or pop a block underneath that knee, and then step the left foot over the extended leg. And like I said before, if this is what your pose looks like and your knee is up really high, it's fine. You can just pop a block or your hands on top of that knee and bow your head down. But if the knee does fold down, catch the foot with your right hand, push the knee away with the left, and see if you can almost bring the knees into this aligned stack of one another. If it even looks like this and your knee is out to the side, maybe just stick a block underneath it. Whatever that looks like for you to give yourself that support. And then when you're ready, start to create the support for the elbows if you are coming into your forward fold. And don't compare your starting point here to your ending point on the other side. Give this side the same amount of space and time to open up. We're not in a rush. Perhaps consider relaxing through the back of the right leg. And melting across the hips. And don't get me wrong, this pose is not for everybody. I always like to say that yoga is for everybody, but not every yoga pose is for everybody. And so if you're finding that you meet a pose that just does not fit you, just ditch it. You can lie on your back, connect with your breath, and just wait until the next pose comes around, and you can rejoin us at any time. Starting to let the downward pull of gravity invite the body deeper. Fall in. Notice if any fibers of muscle mass along your back are holding onto your head. Can you invite them to drop away? Slow, patient breathing. Navigate that inner anatomical landscape with your mind. Starting to take in 5 more breaths. Maybe exploring through the depths, or maybe softening your experience a little. Either way, make space for those breaths. Where are you feeling the most sensation? And whenever you complete those breaths, just start to anchor into the hands, rolling the body back up, moving props out of the way, and unscoop that top leg, let it fly down to the top of the mat and come down onto your back. Rebound pose. Any breaths that want to move through the system, let them move. If stillness doesn't feel like the body is calling for, then create any intuitive movements. Your body is the master, so listen to it. And then when you're ready, start to bend up into the knees. Roll softly out to the opposite side. Pressing yourself up to seated. Final forward fold here. If you are working with your essential oils, feel free to add in your frankincense here. Taking a few drops to the hands, inhaling or wiping the frankincense over your third eye, down your nose, maybe even behind the back of the neck. And start to take your knees out nice and wide. I might even turn sideways so I have a little bit more room. It can sometimes be nice to turn sideways on your mat so that your heels rest on your mat and your sit bones come off the edge of your mat. And same concept here. If you have a tight low back or you feel like you're rolling backwards and you can feel that C shape through your spine, go ahead and prop your sit bones up onto a block or pop a block underneath each knee so that you've got this little teepee shape in both legs, and that will help to just release some movement into the pelvis, giving you a bit more room to fold to each side. On the next inhale, once you've got your prop set up, we're going to take the support over to the left. I'm going to place a block on either side of the left knee, and they're going to be my little elbow
braces. I'm going to take an inhale, lift up through the chest, relax through the feet. And as I exhale, I'm going to slowly lengthen my elbows to the blocks and fold my body down. So you might find that you've got to keep the blocks somewhere around the knee. I find that my body can lengthen quite a bit along my thigh, so I slide the blocks forward. And then for a little while, maybe for the first 5 breaths, I'm just going to plant my head onto my hands and just wait until the QL, the hip, the back starts to open. I'm not going to rush it. I'm just going to let the body take its time. Your body might need 20 breaths. It might need 3 breaths before it feels ready to maybe bow a little bit deeper. You might find that your body doesn't want to go deeper, and honor that observation as well. Notice when you're pushing past your limits, and consider, why am I doing that? What is it that I'm seeking? Can you invite the space between the back of your right hip all the way up towards the back of the right ribs, that whole big flank on that right side? Can you consider sort of lengthening that space? Maybe even breathing into it. Remind the shoulders to drop down. Let the eyes grow tired and heavy. And I find it quite curious that during this full moon time, that Neptune and Pluto have come into a relationship with one another. And Neptune is the planet of sort of transcendence. And so this pairing can bring almost this calm, airy, floaty, go with the flow type of energy to the transformations that arise during this time. So you might be evolving through a situation at the moment, and you're not entirely sure what you're becoming or what will come out of
this situation. But trust that the twists and turns that are coming your way are actually bringing that change to you. So can you yield to them? Can you let the twists and turns come? And let them spiral you on a journey. I'm just taking in 2 more breaths here. And then start small. As you start to unwind, hands can come to blocks or floor. And use your hands to push up rather than using your back to squeeze up. We're going to move straight into the other side. So taking your blocks over to the right side, or maybe you're just using your bolster on top of your leg, that's fine too. And as you inhale, just lift the chest. And as you exhale, drop your chest towards that right knee. Any amount is fine. Build your props up so that they support your practice. Maybe take 5 breaths at that higher experience. Not comparing the base of the other side to the height of this side. Through our yoga practice, we don't aim to iron out the asymmetries of the body. That might be a result that occurs through the practice, but it's not necessarily the deeper intention. The deeper intention is to learn how to recognize these imbalances and asymmetries and learn how to appreciate them, how to see them as fascinating rather than hindrances. And I like to sort of bring that approach to things I notice in my psychology. Things I notice that I do in my life and the way I approach things when I find something about myself that I realize, wow, I'm feeling this way, or I'm approaching this from this type of energy or from this type of emotion. I find it interesting rather than problematic, because self-awareness is really the first step in working on yourself. And if the body starts to call you in a little bit deeper, then maybe yield to those callings. If it's not, then don't force it. Starting to breathe down through that left flank this time. Big pocket of space above your left hip. Maybe for you, there's a lot of sensation happening through the back of that right leg, through the inner thigh, maybe even around the knee. Be where the sensation is calling you. Be there with breath, with kindness. And really start to soften through the jaw. And we'll start to take in 2 more deep breaths. And then taking your time, just slowly start to use your hands in the unfolding process. Deep breathing, let the body come back to center. And before we come down onto the back, move the props out of the way. And we're actually going to hook the knees up with the hands. So lift the knees up and bring the feet towards the outside edges of your mat, a little bit wider than hip distance apart, or sorry, wider than shoulder width apart. And lean back on your hands and start to windscreen wiper the knees side to side. Really take a moment to pause on each side here. You might find that there's one side that doesn't drop inwards as easily. I find that my right leg has far less issue getting to the floor, and then my left leg is like, what are you asking me to do? And so just be respectful. And we're actually going to move into a reclined deer pose from here. So you can take a bolster out long behind you if you like. I'm actually just going to lie back on the floor. But if you need that support, then go ahead and add it in. And the next time that the knees fall to the right, left knee falling to the floor in the center of your mat, you can pop a block underneath that left knee, especially if the thigh bone and the hip socket are really chatting to you. Then support that knee, lift it off the floor a little bit, and then you can lean back on your hands, much like I'm doing here. You can drop down to the elbows or to your bolster if you like. Or you can come all the way down onto your back. Again, sliding any support you need underneath the legs. Maybe even experiment with how much you can widen your feet and the pose still feels really beneficial. If you have an eye pillow and you are lying all the way back, feel free to pop it over the eyes to help aid that interoception. And you might find during this pose, if it feels comfortable for you, to twist the gaze to the left so that you're looking away from your legs. Feel free to explore that spinal rotation. Heaviness in the knees. A real sort of ooziness of the back body. Let all the bones just melt towards the floor. And starting to take in 5 more deep breaths. And just start by turning the head back to center. And as you exhale, bring the knees back up through center. If you were leaning back on your elbows or your hands, just start to come down onto your back, taking a rebound pose for a few deep breaths. Notice any asymmetry moving through the body. Any sensations brushing against your bones. And then if you're choosing to take your more seated or reclined version, then by all means start to make your way back up to a seated position. But if you're happy to stay on your back, then just reset the feet so they're as wide as your mat, and then drop the knees over to the left. Maybe you want to pop a block underneath that right knee, or the knee that's falling to the middle of the mat. Your body might even want to block on the outside knee. And then you can go ahead and lean back onto your hands or your elbows. Maybe you're lying all the way down onto your back. And start to release tension through that right knee, almost letting the knee grow heavy and dense towards the floor. We won't be here for quite as long as the other postures. We're really just taking this pose as a way of flushing the kidney channels and twisting out any tension in the back that we may have built up through the forward folds. Just losing yourself to the breath, and perhaps even the gentle sounds of the music, almost steeping in the present. Letting your inner self just ooze out, just like loose leaf tea soaking in hot water. All the flavors, all the color just slowly starts to leach out of the leaves. Let yourself just be. Not trying to box yourself into any way or any mode of being. Not trying to fix or change anything. Just let yourself feel. The full moon is illuminating, and it pulls emotional content to the surface in the same way that the moon pulls the tide. And while the sun sort of governs our action and our ego, the moon governs the deeper world, the emotional, the subconscious. And so let those contents just swirl and move, not needing to have it all figured out. You might like to drift the gaze to the right, maybe tucking that right ear underneath your head a little bit. Moving into our last minute here. And let there be 5 more deep breaths. And whenever you've taken those breaths, start to turn your head back to center. Slowly start to lift back up onto your hands if you were leaning back on your elbows. If you're lying down on your back, just stay as you are and start to bring the knees back up to center. And we'll all meet lying down on the back, taking a few rebound poses. Maybe it's knees bent, maybe it's legs straight, maybe it's something else that I haven't mentioned yet. Whatever it is, connect with yourself. Remind yourself to smooth over third eye center. If you're using your essential oils through this practice, now would be the time to add in your clary sage. Perhaps massaging it over the heart, placing it over the third eye, clarity and vision, clearing the inner fog that hinders the truth seeking, that hinders clear judgment. And when you feel ready, just start to bend into the knees and roll yourself out to one side. Our final pose will be a supported fish pose, but I am going to do it with 2 blocks today as a way of adding a little bit of acupressure to UB10, which is urinary bladder 10, roughly around the base of your skull. And so if this feels comfortable for you, then feel free to explore this with me. But if you like to take your fish pose in another variation, feel free to take whatever works for you. So I'm going to add 1 block underneath the sort of upper shoulder area, and then the other block I'm going to use as a way of adding this acupressure point. So this top edge of my block is going to be the part that massages the underside of the skull, sort of where your neck meets your hairline. There's some occipital muscles in there that can get really juicy. If this is way too intense with the block set up like this, then feel free to lower the level a little bit. You can take the block down a little bit lower. You can even just take it flat like that, and you can lay your neck on it. You don't even need this second block if you don't want to. So take your time to experiment, and don't expect to find it perfect the first go. But as you start to wind on down, let that upper block sort of support the upper sides of the shoulders. And then as you recline your head back, just maneuver things around until you can let the blocks support each other. You might even be a bit like me, where you've got to take that bottom block down a little bit lower towards the shoulder blades, and then using that upper block to stand up nice and tall. So I've got the edge of the block closest to me, massaging into that occipital zone. But feel free to experiment here. Really find what works for you. I often maneuver around a lot to find what feels perfect for me. I can even feel today that my body isn't really enjoying any of those options. So I'm just going to come down lying flat on my back and using one block underneath my head. And so I keep it up on its medium setting, make sure it's nice and stable, and then I maneuver my neck around on that front edge. And once you've found that little juicy spot, you might even like to roll the head side to side. Trying to move really slow. As the head sways left and right, and you find some little sort of gnarly nugget bits, maybe hold there, take a breath, and really relax the jaw. Feel the slow intricacies of the neck, the throat, the edges of your head. It's all interconnected. The anatomy around your neck is really intricate, and it likes to go really slow. So move in slow motion. Just taking in 3 more deep breaths. Really relax the weight of the head, maybe even find a moment of stillness. And then just gently bring the hand to the block under your head and move it out. If you had a couple of blocks underneath you, just sit up and move them out of the way so that you can make your way down onto your back. Maybe feeling like there's all this space behind the back of the neck, the back of the head. Maybe even turn the head side to side a couple of times. And moving into Shavasana, you can let your legs extend, or maybe you slide a bolster underneath the knees. You can take your eye pillow over the eye sockets, really dropping some heaviness into that third eye. One of the greatest ways to connect to your third eye and your inner vision is to remove your physical vision. So much of your brain is dedicated to processing visual information. And so as you close your eyes and you drop into deeper meditative practices, you're actually freeing up a lot of that brain space and brain processing for deeper awareness and deeper sensing. Take a few exhales that allow your body to let go of any remaining tension. Completely relax the palate inside the mouth. Perhaps gaze up into the third eye space, that vast blackness above the natural eye line. Maybe you have shapes, lights, colors. Observe them as an impartial observer. Maybe even noticing the softness of your dreamscape. The visions that form through your third eye. And there's no force applied upon it. Perhaps repeating internally to yourself, my perceptions can bear true. My perceptions can bear true. Just starting to deepen your breath again now. Letting the breath bring you back to the very real nature of your body. And you can start to animate the body, moving the hands and feet, stretching in any way that feels natural to you. And just roll yourself out to one side. And allow yourself to press up. Comfortable seat. Maybe coming up with the eyes closed. Not worrying too much where you land. And once you arrive, just draw your hands in towards your heart space. Bowing your head toward your hands. And then guiding your thumbs up toward your third eye. May you see and know the deeper truths that run like rivers through your life. May you clear all confusions, all distractions and lies that impede upon your truth, upon your knowing. And I thank you for sharing your deeper sense of knowing with me today. Namaste.